The morning Tokyo's sky turned purple. Dr. Kira Nakamura was analyzing quantum fluctuations in her underground laboratory. The readings on her instruments spiked to unprecedented levels, moments before every screen in the facility went dark. When emergency power kicked in 30 seconds later, the data showed something impossible: a complete reorganization of local space-time geometry. Professor Nakamura, her research assistant, Raj Patel, burst through the laboratory doors, his usually neat appearance disheveled. "You need to see this." He pulled up the live feed from outside on his tablet, hands trembling as he held it out to her. The purple sky wasn't the most disturbing part. Floating above the city's skyline was a massive geometric structure, a dodecahedron that seemed to phase in and out of reality, its surface rippling like liquid metal. Similar reports would soon come in from New York, London, Mumbai, and 13 other major cities across the globe. The Meridian Empire had arrived, but not as anyone had expected. 3 months earlier, humanity had celebrated its first contact with alien life. The initial transmission from the Meridians had been peaceful, even promising, offering technological advancement and cultural exchange. But something had gone wrong during the diplomatic mission to their home system. The details remained classified, but the aftermath was clear. Earth's delegation had returned with only half its crew, and the survivors spoke of horrors they couldn't fully articulate. Now, as Kira studied the readings from the anomaly above Tokyo, she began to understand why. The Meridians weren't just technologically advanced, they were something else entirely. The energy signatures suggested they existed partially in dimensions humanity had barely theorized about. "Dr. Nakamura," General Yuki Tanaka's voice came through the emergency communication system. "We need your analysis. How long before these structures pose a direct threat?" Kira's fingers flew across her holographic interface, running simulations based on the incoming data. "They already are a threat, General. But not in the way you're thinking." She pushed her silver-streaked black hair back from her face, studying the patterns emerging from her calculations. "These aren't weapons. They're bridges." "Bridges to what?" The general's voice carried an edge of tension that made Kira's spine tingle. "To them. To their reality." She pulled up a 3-dimensional model of the structure's energy signature. "The Meridians aren't invading our space. They're trying to merge it with theirs. The physical laws in their dimension operate differently. If these bridges fully activate, Earth's fundamental forces could be rewritten." Raj finished, his face pale as he grasped the implications. The next 48 hours became a blur of activity, while military forces worldwide mobilize uselessly against threats they couldn't even properly perceive. Kira and a hastily assembled team of quantum physicists worked to understand the nature of the bridges. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Jamila Hassan, a theoretical physicist from Cairo, noticed something in the background radiation patterns. They weren't random. When processed through specialized algorithms, they formed complex mathematical sequences, ones that bore surprising similarities to human brainwave patterns. "They're not trying to destroy us," Jamila explained during an emergency UN conference call. "They're trying to communicate in the only way they know how, by sharing their consciousness, their very reality, with ours." But the process was killing people. Those closest to the structures reported increasingly severe symptoms: headaches, hallucinations, and in some cases, complete psychological breaks. Human minds weren't equipped to process reality the way the Meridians did. Working with neurologists and quantum computing experts, Kira's team began developing a potential solution. If they couldn't stop the bridges from forming, perhaps they could adapt humanity to survive them. "It's insane," General Tanaka argued during a critical meeting at the Tokyo facility. "You're suggesting we voluntarily alter human consciousness." "The alternative is extinction," Kira responded, bringing up the latest models. "These bridges will fully manifest within 2 weeks. When they do, our reality will begin to merge with theirs. Those who can't adapt will." She left the sentence unfinished. The decision came down to a critical vote at the United Nations. With time running out and options limited, humanity faced its greatest choice: resist and likely perish, or embrace an evolution they barely understood. Kira stood in her lab on the evening of the vote, watching the purple sky darken to a deep indigo. The dodecahedron above pulsed with increasing frequency, sending waves of quantum distortion across the city. Her tablet chimed with the results. The resolution had passed. Operation Consciousness Bridge would begin immediately. As she prepared the first test of their adaptation protocol, Kira couldn't help but wonder if humanity's greatest achievement would be learning to transcend itself. The Meridians hadn't come to conquer. They'd come to transform. Whether that transformation would lead to humanity's extinction or evolution remained to be seen. Raj worked silently beside her, preparing the neural interface equipment. They would be among the first volunteers to test the consciousness adaptation protocol. Outside, the sky continued to shift colors, and reality itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what humanity would become. The first test was scheduled for dawn. As Kira made her final preparations, she found herself remembering something her grandmother used to say. The butterfly doesn't fear the chrysalis. Perhaps humanity was ready for its metamorphosis, ready to emerge into something greater than itself. The machines hummed to life around her, and the future began to unfold. The modified neural link felt cold against Kira's temple as she lay in the adaptation chamber. Through the transparent barrier, she could see Raj monitoring the equipment, his face illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. The chamber itself hummed with quantum stabilizers, humanity's best attempt to create a safe space for consciousness expansion. Neural pattern synchronization at 30%, Raj announced, his voice steady despite the tension visible in his shoulders. Dr. Hassan's team in Cairo reports similar readings. Across the globe, 12 other chambers housed volunteers, physicists, neurologists, and consciousness researchers who understood enough about what was happening to be terrified, yet chose to proceed anyway. Above each of their cities, the meridian structures pulsed with increasing intensity. The first sensation was subtle, a slight shift in how colors appeared, as if someone had adjusted the saturation of reality itself. Then came the mathematics. Kira found herself perceiving mathematical relationships everywhere, not just understanding them, but feeling them, as if they were tastes or textures. Synchronization at 60%. Raj's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Brainwave patterns are evolving. The world began to fold in on itself, not physically, but in ways Kira's mind struggled to categorize. She perceived dimensions beyond the usual four, saw how gravity twisted space like fabric, understood time as a landscape rather than a river. More importantly, she began to sense others. At first, they were just impressions. The other volunteers, their consciousness brushing against hers like silk against skin. Then came something else, something vast and intricate and utterly alien. The Meridians. They're beautiful, Kira whispered, tears streaming down her face. They're not what we thought at all. Through the neural bridge, she began to understand. The Meridians existed as a collective consciousness, each individual a note in an endless symphony of thought. They hadn't evolved like humanity had. They'd been engineered, transformed by their own technology eons ago to transcend physical limitations. But they were dying. The revelation hit Kira with the force of a physical blow. The Meridian consciousness was failing, entropy claiming their vast network of shared thoughts. They needed humanity not as subjects or experimental specimens, but as partners in survival. Human consciousness, with its capacity for individual thought and creativity, might be the key to their renewal. Synchronization at 85%, Raj called out, his voice tight with concern. Dr. Nakamura, your neural patterns are approaching critical divergence. The pain started then, a burning sensation that began in her temples and spread throughout her nervous system. Human brains weren't meant to process this much information, to exist in so many dimensions at once. But through the pain came understanding. In Cairo, Dr. Hassan's consciousness reached out to Kira's. their thoughts intertwining. Together, they began to grasp the full scope of what the meridians were attempting. The bridges weren't just connecting spaces, they were connecting modes of existence. "We need to slow down the merger," Kira managed to say through gritted teeth. "Our minds can adapt, but not this quickly. We need time." Through the neural bridge, she projected this understanding to the meridian consciousness. The response was immediate. A surge of comprehension, and was that relief? The massive structures above Earth's cities began to pulse more slowly, their energy signatures shifting to a frequency that human minds could better process. "Synchronization stabilizing at 90%, Raj reported. "Neural patterns are. I've never seen anything like this." Kira opened her eyes to a transformed world. She could still see the physical laboratory, but overlaid upon it were layers of quantum probability, strings of mathematical relationships, and most strikingly, the thoughts and emotions of others. The other volunteers' consciousness shone like stars in her perception, while the Meridian Collective glowed like a galaxy. "We need to expand the program," she said, sitting up slowly as Raj helped remove the neural link. "But carefully. Not everyone will be able to handle the transition at once." Dr. Hassan's voice came through the communication system, thick with emotion. "The Meridians are sharing their history with me. Their civilization. It's millions of years old. They've seen the rise and fall of countless species, but they've never encountered one quite like us. Because we're chaotic," Kira realized, understanding flowing through the lingering connection. "Our consciousness is fragmented, individual, unpredictable. It's exactly what they need to prevent their own entropy." The next few days saw a careful expansion of the adaptation program. Selected individuals from various fields, artists, musicians, philosophers, and scientists, were brought in to experience the neural bridge. Each person who successfully adapted brought new perspectives, new ways of thinking that enriched both human and meridian understanding. But there were complications. Not everyone could handle the expansion of consciousness. Some volunteers had to be pulled out of the program, their minds unable to process the broader reality they were experiencing. And there were those who opposed the entire project, seeing it as the end of human individuality. General Tanaka, who had been skeptical from the start, voiced concerns about security. "We're making ourselves vulnerable," he argued during an emergency council meeting. "How do we know this isn't just a more sophisticated form of conquest?" Kira, her consciousness still partially linked to the Meridian Collective, smiled. "Because I can feel their desperation, their hope, and yes, their fear. They're as afraid of failing as we are. This isn't conquest, General. It's cooperation." As the bridges continued to pulse overhead, humanity stood at a crossroads. The path forward would require not weapons or traditional defenses, but something far more challenging: the willingness to transform, to become something new and unprecedented in the universe's history. Raj, who had finally agreed to undergo the adaptation process himself, summed it up best. "We're not losing our humanity. We're expanding it to encompass something greater than ourselves." Above them, the purple sky shimmered with possibility, and the future continued to unfold in ways no one could have predicted. The discovery came during a routine geological survey in the Atacama Desert. Dr. Lucia Ortiz had been mapping quantum disturbances around the newest Meridian Bridge when her instruments detected something impossible. A structure identical to the bridges, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Earth's surface. "It's at least 50,000 years old," she reported to Kira through their neural link, her excitement rippling through the shared consciousness. "And it's not the only one. We're finding them everywhere. Under the Gobi Desert, the Antarctic ice sheet, the Amazon rainforest." Kira stood in her Tokyo lab, processing this information through both her human mind and her expanded consciousness. Through the neural bridge, she could feel the Meridian Collective stirring with what she could only interpret as recognition. "They've been here before," she whispered, the realization cascading through her neural network. But something went wrong. The truth emerged gradually, pieced together from ancient structures and the vast memory of the Meridian Collective. 50 millennia ago, they had attempted the same transformation with Earth's then dominant species. The process had failed catastrophically, resulting in a mass extinction event that had cleared the way for human evolution. "That's why they waited so long to contact us," Raj said, his consciousness brushing against Kira's as they examined three-dimensional renderings of the buried structures. "They needed us to reach a certain level of cognitive development first." The implications were staggering. Human consciousness hadn't evolved entirely naturally. It had been subtly shaped by the quantum remnants of the ancient bridges, preparing humanity for this moment across thousands of generations. Not everyone took the news well. Anti-transformation protests erupted in cities worldwide. Religious leaders debated the theological implications of engineered consciousness. Military leaders worried about the strategic implications of pre-existing alien structures beneath Earth's surface. Dr. Hassan, whose consciousness had become particularly attuned to the Meridian Collective, made another crucial discovery. The bridges aren't just communication devices, she explained during a global neural conference that connected adapted humans across the planet. They're testing grounds. The Meridians weren't just looking for compatible consciousness, they were looking for one that could help them evolve. Through their expanded awareness, the adapted humans could sense the truth in her words. The Meridian Collective, for all its vast knowledge and power, had reached an evolutionary dead end. Their shared consciousness had become too uniform, too predictable. They needed the chaos and creativity of human individuality to break free from their stasis. But the ancient structures posed a new problem. As they awakened in response to the active bridges above, they began affecting the Earth's geological stability. Earthquakes rattled regions that had been tectonically quiet for millions of years. Strange energy emissions interfered with global communication systems. "We need to either shut them down or fully activate them," Kira realized, her consciousness extending through the quantum field to study the disturbances. There's no safe middle ground. The decision was complicated by a discovery in the Mariana Trench. A team of adapted oceanographers found what appeared to be a control center, a vast underwater complex of ancient Meridian technology. Dr. Ortiz, who had joined the diving expedition, made contact with its systems through her expanded consciousness. "It's not just a control center," she reported, her thoughts tinged with awe. "It's a library, a record of every species they've attempted to transform. We're not the first, but we might be the last. Their collective is running out of energy. If this attempt fails, they won't have the strength to try again." The pressure of this knowledge weighed heavily on the adapted humans. Through their neural link, they could feel the Meridian Collective's growing desperation. The ancient structures were becoming increasingly unstable, their quantum fluctuations threatening to tear apart the fabric of space-time itself. Working around the clock, teams of adapted scientists and engineers tried to understand the ancient technology. Traditional human science merged with Meridian knowledge, creating new fields of study that bridged the gap between physical and consciousness-based technologies. "The ancient structures aren't failing," Kira announced one day, after weeks of intensive study. "They're waiting." The entire system was designed to activate only when both species were ready for true synthesis. She could feel the truth of it through her expanded consciousness. The buried bridges weren't just communication devices or testing grounds. They were foundation points for a complete transformation of Earth's quantum structure. If fully activated, they would create a permanent merger of human and Meridian reality. "But we'd lose Earth as we know it," General Tanaka argued, his unchanged human consciousness struggling to comprehend the implications. "Everything would be different." "Everything is already different," Raj countered, his thoughts resonating through the neural network. "The question is whether we guide the change or let it destroy us." As if in response to their debate, the ancient structures began to pulse with increasing power. The purple sky darkened to a deep violet, and adapted humans worldwide reported sensing a growing pressure in the quantum field. Kira stood in her lab, watching readings that existed both as physical data and as patterns in her expanded consciousness. The time for discussion was running out. Humanity faced a choice: retreat from the transformation and lose their connection to the Meridian Collective, or push forward into an entirely new form of existence. Through the neural bridge, she could feel the hopes and fears of billions, both human and Meridian, all waiting to see what humanity would choose. The ancient structures continued their rhythmic pulsing, counting down to a moment that would reshape the very nature of consciousness itself. The decision came not from any government or authority, but from the collective consciousness of adapted humans themselves. As the ancient structure's pulses reached critical frequency, a new kind of awareness emerged, something neither purely human nor Meridian, but a harmonious blend of both. Commander Hikari Sato, one of the few military leaders who had undergone the adaptation process, described it as a symphony where every consciousness is both conductor and musician. Through the neural bridge, individual minds began to synchronize while maintaining their unique characteristics, creating patterns of thought more complex than either species had achieved alone. "It's starting," Kira breathed, watching as waves of quantum energy rippled through reality itself. The laboratory around her seemed to flicker between states of existence, each one representing a different possibility of what Earth might become. Through their expanded awareness, the adapted humans could sense the Meridian Collective's response, not just relief or gratitude, but a profound sense of completion. They had found in humanity not just partners in survival, but catalysts for their own evolution. Dr. Hassan's consciousness reached out from Cairo, touching minds across the globe. The ancient structures aren't just transforming Earth, she realized. They're transforming space itself, creating a new domain where both our species can fully exist. The process began slowly at first. Subtle changes in how light behaved, shifts in the fundamental forces that held matter together. But as more humans underwent adaptation, the transformation accelerated. Cities shimmered with new dimensions of reality, while the purple sky became a canvas for thoughts and emotions made manifest. Raj, working with a team of adapted physicists, made a startling discovery. The transformation isn't limited to consciousness, he reported. Our DNA is changing, responding to the quantum field generated by the bridges. We're evolving in real time. The changes weren't uniform. Some humans adapted more quickly than others, developing abilities that seemed miraculous. Direct manipulation of quantum fields, instantaneous communication across vast distances, even the ability to perceive possible futures. Others struggled with the transformation, their minds and bodies fighting against the new reality trying to emerge. Through it all, Kira worked to understand and guide the process, her consciousness expanding to encompass more of the Meridian Collective's vast knowledge. She began to see the true scope of what they were becoming, not just a merger of two species, but the birth of something entirely new in the universe. The symphony needs all its instruments, she explained during a global consciousness conference that spanned both physical and quantum space. Those who adapt quickly help stabilize those who need more time. Even those who choose to remain unchanged have their part to play. The resistance movement, led by those who feared the loss of traditional human existence, began to see the transformation in a new light. Through carefully controlled exposures to the neural bridge, they came to understand that individuality wasn't being lost. It was being enhanced, given new contexts and meanings in the expanding reality. General Tanaka, who had finally agreed to undergo adaptation, emerged from the process with tears in his eyes. "I was wrong," he transmitted through the neural network. "This isn't an invasion or a conquest. It's an invitation to become part of something greater than ourselves." As the transformation continued, Earth itself began to change. The ancient structures, fully awakened, created networks of quantum energy that transformed the planet's biosphere. Plants developed new properties, animals showed signs of increased intelligence, and the very atmosphere began to shimmer with conscious intent. Dr. Ortiz, leading a team studying these changes, made another remarkable discovery. "The Earth isn't just changing," she announced through the shared consciousness. "It's remembering." These patterns, they're similar to what we found in meridian records of other transformed worlds. Each planet becomes a unique expression of the species that inhabit it. But the greatest discovery came from the youngest adapted humans. Children born to adapted parents showed an innate ability to navigate the new reality, their consciousness naturally bridging human and meridian modes of existence. They became living proof that the transformation wasn't an end, but a beginning. They're the first of a new kind of being, Kira observed, watching a group of children effortlessly manipulating quantum fields in what had once been a traditional playground. Neither human nor meridian, but something that carries the best of both. The Meridian Collective, through the neural bridge, shared their own wonder at this development. They had sought survival and found renewal instead, their ancient consciousness revitalized by the creativity and chaos of human thought patterns. As the purple sky above Earth deepened to colors that existed in dimensions beyond human sight, the transformed planet became a beacon in space, a signal to other species that evolution didn't have to mean conquest, that transformation could come through harmony rather than conflict. Kira stood in what had once been her laboratory, now a nexus of consciousness where physical and quantum realities merged seamlessly. Through the neural network, she could feel the thoughts and emotions of billions, each consciousness a unique note in an ever-expanding symphony of minds. The future that unfolded wasn't the one anyone had predicted, but it was perhaps the one they had always been moving toward, a future where the boundaries between species, between mind and matter, between self and other, became opportunities for growth rather than barriers to overcome. A century after the first purple sky, the being who had once been Kira Nakamura stood at the edge of what humans had once called space. Her consciousness, now a harmonious blend of human individuality and meridian collective awareness, stretched across multiple dimensions of reality. The Earth below her was both familiar and transformed. Cities had evolved into living organisms of consciousness and matter, their structures responding to the thoughts and needs of their inhabitants. The ancient transformation structures had become permanent features of the planet's quantum architecture, their energy now as natural as gravity or light. We're ready for the next step. Raj's consciousness resonated through the neural network, his essence still distinctly individual despite the centuries of transformation. As humanity's first ambassador to the stars, he had been instrumental in preparing for this moment. The next step was something even the Meridians had never attempted: the deliberate seeding of consciousness transformation across the galaxy. Other species had been watching Earth's transformation with what could only be described as cosmic curiosity. Dr. Hassan, her consciousness now spanning multiple star systems, had made first contact with 3 different civilizations, each at their own crucial evolutionary crossroads. They're asking for guidance, she transmitted through the quantum field. They want to know if transformation is possible for them too. The answer, as humanity and the Meridians had discovered, was both simple and profound. Transformation was not just possible, it was inevitable. The universe itself seemed to bend toward consciousness, toward the integration of matter and mind, of individual and collective, of chaos and harmony. The children of the first transformation had grown into beings that defied traditional classification. They moved through quantum fields as easily as their ancestors had walked on solid ground, their thoughts creating ripples in reality that could be felt across light years. Yet they maintained that quintessentially human capacity for individual expression, for creativity, for love. We're seeing the emergence of true quantum evolution. Dr. Ortiz's consciousness echoed from what had once been the Mariana Trench, now a vast archive of both human and meridian knowledge. Not just adaptation to environment, but conscious direction of development itself. The Meridian Collective, once facing entropy and extinction, had been revolutionized by its merger with human consciousness. The unpredictability of human thought patterns had introduced new variables into their ancient awareness, creating possibilities they had never imagined in their millions of years of existence. Together, the transformed species had begun to understand the deeper purpose of consciousness in the universe. It wasn't just about survival or dominance. It was about the universe knowing itself, about reality evolving through the lens of aware beings. Through the vast neural network that now spanned Earth and reached toward distant stars, Kira could feel the pulse of this new form of existence. Every consciousness, whether originally human or meridian, contributed its unique frequency to the universal symphony. We were never meant to remain separate, she transmitted to the gathered awareness of both species. The universe doesn't evolve through isolation, but through connection, through the merging of different ways of being. The proof lay in the new beings emerging across Earth and in the transformed spaces around it. They were the children of two vastly different approaches to existence: human individuality and meridian collective consciousness, and they represented something the universe had never seen before. General Tanaka, whose consciousness had become a guardian of Earth's transformation history, often reflected on the irony of their initial fears. We thought we were facing conquest, his thoughts echoed through the quantum field. Instead, we were being offered transcendence. As the transformed Earth prepared to share its gift with other species, Kira felt a deep resonance with both her human origins and her expanded existence. The fear of losing humanity had proven unfounded. Instead, humanity had found its true potential, its ability to grow beyond its original limitations while maintaining its essential nature. The purple sky that had once seemed alien now felt like home, its quantum-shifted colors a constant reminder of how far they had come. But it wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. Across the galaxy, other species were reaching their own moments of choice, their own opportunities for transformation. Through the neural network, Kira could feel the ripples of change spreading outward, carrying the message that evolution didn't have to mean conquest, that transformation could come through cooperation rather than conflict. The universe itself seemed to pulse with possibility, with the promise of consciousness expanding ever outward, taking new forms, finding new ways to exist. "This is what we were always meant to be," she transmitted, her thoughts reaching across space and time to touch both past and future. Not conquerors or conquered, but pioneers of consciousness itself. The symphony of minds continued to play across the cosmos, each consciousness adding its unique note to the universal song. And somewhere, in dimensions beyond human sight or meridian understanding, reality itself smiled at the children who had finally learned to dance to its quantum rhythms. The transformation that had begun with a purple sky over Tokyo had become something greater than either species had imagined. Not an end, but an eternal beginning, a continuous evolution of what consciousness could become when fear gave way to curiosity, when conquest gave way to cooperation, when the boundaries between self and other dissolved into the infinite possibilities of existence itself. And so the story of humanity continued, not as a single species on a single world, but as part of a greater symphony of consciousness, ever evolving, ever transforming, ever reaching toward new horizons of being. The purple sky had been just the beginning. The true adventure of consciousness was only just beginning to unfold.